Welcome into another episode of Scurry and the Scrub. It is I, Scurry, of Scurry and the Scrub, me, Jordan Scurry, here with my man, Matt DeMarinas. We are here on a Sunday night live to give you a preview of the Big East, our first Big East preview of the season.
Well, it's like our weekend review.
Weekend review.
Yeah.
Weekend review, first Big East weekend review.
So it's like our Big East season in review, but we're gonna make it a weekly thing after that.
Make it a weekly thing. So our first weekend review, Big East podcast. Matt, how you feeling? Talk to the people.
I'm feeling exhausted because it's just been a weekend. Like there's been so much. Jordan's gonna be the life of the party tonight. I'm not gonna lie.
You know, that's what I do. You know, I keep the spirits up. Matt keeps Matt keeps it real. I keep the spirits up, and so we're here to, talk Big East, talk about what we've seen thus far. It's been
I guess. Well, I mean, you were texting me last night, like you took some extensive notes on Creighton, Iowa State, so I'm just dying to hear. I specifically waited not to ask you about it until we hit record, so I was like, I got to see what Jordan thought about that.
Yeah, no. So the game last night, I was very confident on Creighton last night. And I know the game had happened to end up the way it did. But
are you ever not confident in Creighton, by the way? Is there you ever go in being like,
No. Actually, you want to know what's funny? I think it's when people challenge, like, if I am confident in Creighton or not, it makes me more confident. Yeah, like it makes me more like, people are like, yo, so yesterday when friends were like, I had some friends just from high school who were even like, yo, is Creighton gonna be Iowa State? And I was like, what do you mean? Yes, yeah, of course. Like, and I got kind of upset that they
even
thought that was so
the audacity to ask if a toss-up game would go your way. I think you're maybe not far enough removed from that competitive side of you. Like, you're just like, yeah, we're gonna win. What are you talking about? I didn't show up here to lose.
No, and I told you I watched some highlights on Iowa State and everything, and I knew they were scrappy defensively and everything. Mm-hmm. But what I think set it over the edge, man, was when I heard there was gonna be 18,000. I was like, what? I'll put all my money. If 18,000 are showing up at the Chi-House, at the Clink, it's still the Century Link to me. Okay. Shout out to Clink. I'm like, if 18,000 showing up at the Clink, it's hard for me not to believe in the boys. Like, it's not. It's difficult. It still is difficult. I think I'm not far enough removed yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, like, you asked me for yesterday my scouting report on Iowa State, right?
Right.
So, like, when the game starts playing out and Creighton starts turning the ball over, like, did you think they were gonna adjust at some point, or were you kind of like worried that Iowa State's physicality was gonna dictate this whole game?
Well, no, I thought their defense. I did think they would adjust at some point, and I thought there might have been a point where Creighton could go on a run, but I just don't think they ever got to that. Like, I don't think I was hopeful at certain points for sure, but I don't think they ever got to a point where I was confident enough, because honestly, credit to Iowa State's defense, because they didn't let any runs really happen on them like that. Like, they didn't
happen. Like, was the end of the first half, Creighton got some separation going,
Yeah.
Then they gave up a 7-0 run, and Iowa State tied it up at half. And it's like, oh, that kind of felt like maybe because the only thing that Iowa State was doing right there, like, Creighton was defending well, but they turned the ball over 15 times in the first half. The only reason that game was close was because Iowa State wasn't like making them pay for that.
Do you think? I'm glad you brought this up. Do you think? Because one thing I actually had thought about watching that game, do you think this team struggles to create that separation? Because I've definitely been on teams that have struggled to create a certain type of separation to put away games and to, like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think this was the type of game that even speaks to that, or was this
Maybe.
just
There? I mean, because there are a few examples, right? Like the Nebraska game got out of hand early, and Creighton Nebraska got back in it. So in the second half was kind of punch, each team kind of like getting after it, and then like Arkansas Pine Bluff was a humongous run, but there was kind of a lull there a little bit that where instead of winning by 25, Creighton won by 13. So I don't know, maybe there's something. You're not. I don't think you're wrong about that. Like there's North Dakota State was probably the outlier, right? They're the only North Dakota State's the only game so far for Creighton where they've got off to a good start. Held a lead into halftime and then blew the doors open in the second half, right? So maybe to answer that question, the most recent example is a yes. They've shown that they are capable of putting the team away because they had just done it to North Dakota State. The Iowa State one, I just don't know I haven't rewatched it yet, so I'm not sure how you're going to look at the film and how much you're going to blame Creighton's execution down the stretch of the first half or Iowa State's. Right. Are you going to blame Creighton, or are you going to give credit to Iowa State for getting back in the game? But either way, I felt like the end of that first half is the reason Iowa State won the game, because they woke up, and then to hit a three right before the buzzer, I feel like it just got them engaged. Like they might have been engaged defensively the whole time, but once Creighton adjusted to the pressure, I think it was going to be tough if Iowa State was in a hole out of halftime. Instead, they were coming back, and it was essentially 0-0 coming out of the locker room. So Iowa State's like, look, we played a horrible half offensively, but we're tied on the road in front of 18,000. We should feel pretty good about that. You know what I mean? So I think that was where the game shifted in Iowa State's favor, was right there.
That's funny. I think you're dead on. And I think it's what I didn't anticipate about the game is I anticipate this Iowa State team coming into the Shy-House Center and getting that type of momentum.
First true road game for Iowa State, right? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, because especially for someone who's, been in that arena and seeing what it's really like. There's very few teams that have come in there and gotten a swagger. I can remember very few teams that have gotten into that arena, come into the Shy-Health and
settle in. Yeah.
And very few. Mm-hmm. To be completely honest, one I can remember, Jalen Brunson's Villanova team.
Yeah, Nova constantly. Yeah. Nova's built for it.
Jalen Brunson's, of course. But very few like the Iowa State team, because I think back even to a Wisconsin my freshman year at this time specifically, right? Mm-hmm. Where even a Bronson Koenig could not get into his rhythm in the or in the CenturyLink at that time. So there's just that's why I'm I guess I have these questions about this game, because I'm I don't really know what to make of it, because the Iowa State, as good as they are, I don't know if this team is young, the Creighton team. So I don't know if they have really figured that out. And I think, again, we both were saying, after watching the film, I think I'll be able to figure out more so of what the cause of it was. But I think what you're saying about that end of the first half going into the second half was what that game was. Yeah. I think ultimately what it became, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. No, this is the beginning of a really, it's not just a tough stretch for Creighton. This is their season right now, basically.
Absolutely.
They're playing Iowa State, and then this is finals week now. So they're gonna, I imagine, take a couple days off, get their academics in order, then get back on the practice floor, get ready for BYU. Then they have Arizona State to wrap up non-conference play, and then here comes Villanova. They're wrapping up non-conference play with that, right? Yeah, because that's 20 games now, right? Yeah.
It's a little gauntlet. It's a little gauntlet.
So then, but that's what I mean. The season starts like now.
Yeah.
Like Iowa State, BYU, Arizona State, Villanova, and then like Villanova kicks off conference play. Like that's kind of
there's
not going to be any gimmies from here on out.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of how it. And as a player, that's kind of how going through it for 4 years. Kind of that's how I guess shed light on it from that perspective. It's just like that's how it always is because you get to December, right? And then it's like you get to that point where there's your finals and or this point of the year where you have all that. And then you get to a point where it's just a team and it's just these games. And there's much more of a focus on these games. And so I think for Creighton's schedule specifically, I'm looking for them to like really show something, man. Like I do. Because
these are the games historically where if you win a couple of these last non-con games, it makes a difference. Yeah.
You feel good. You feel good in the season. These are really games that, especially because when people, the school, everyone goes home for break and everything, you start to feel like you just with the squad, and so you start to feel a type of that's just like it builds chemistry and it builds momentum going forward. And that's why I'm like joking about like this gauntlet that Creighton has right now, but it's serious because it's like if you can build momentum right now going into what will be the Big East season, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
And we got some good games.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think the league's going to be pretty competitive this year because, like, I don't know, I've seen Villanova a handful of times, and I think they are the best team in the league. But I don't know if there's a gap, or if there is a gap. I guess I don't know if it's a significant one, but I kind of feel that way. I don't know. I kind of felt that way about the past couple of Villanova teams too. And honestly, I don't think I was wrong though. Like 2 years ago, you guys won the league. 2 years ago, you guys were the best team in the league. And then last year, Villanova was technically the regular season champion, but they also played an unbalanced schedule and didn't have to play the teams that Creighton played and, all that sort of thing. So they had the pauses and whatnot. So it was just a weird year to say Villanova was the best team in the league. I just don't know if they proved that, Creighton whipped them in Omaha and then Villanova played them, 2 days after, the MAC controversy happened. So it's like I think timing was on Villanova's side in a lot of that regard. So I don't know if the last 2 years, if they've been the best team in the league. And this year, they lost Jeremiah Robinson Earl, right? And then obviously they brought back Gillespie and Samuels, which is huge. And Justin Moore looks like he's leveled up a bit, but I just don't know if they've added a whole bunch of guys to offset the Jeremiah Robinson Earl loss that makes them like, oh boy, they're going to run roughshod over everybody in the league, 10 to 20 point favorites on any given night. They're not, if they lose 1 or 2, you're going to be shocked. I think it's going to be it looks like a year where there might be a 4 or 5 loss champion again. I wouldn't be surprised.
Even the year, honestly, that Villanova won the national championship when we were the last team to beat them. Yeah, that year they had 3 losses. Yeah, see, exactly. So this is what I'm saying.
One of them was St. John's, who was the worst team in the conference.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page with this. Is I'm not I could see Villanova losing a certain amount of games in the Big East, whatever, similar to that year, but still being a very good team because I think what I'm seeing out of them now, they're ahead of, I guess, I think what I expected them to be. I did not. Colin Gillespie, shout out him, man. I did not expect him to be as good as he's been thus far. This
early.
This early. No, I did not. My timeline for a guy.
That injury happened pretty late, right? Yeah, it was
to me, very late.
Second half of the Creighton game. Yeah.
And so shout out to guys like a guy like Colin Gillespie who really attacked his rehab and all that because, dude, you don't come back from an injury like he had. And maybe it didn't look brutal, but like that's a tough injury to come back from. Mm-hmm. And he looks really good. And I think specifically in the pick and roll, as a point guard in the Big East, you really have to command. Think about the best point guards in the Big East over the last however many years. Mm-hmm. They command themselves in the pick and roll.
Yep.
And to be able to come back from an injury like that and handle a pick and roll and be defensively capable of what he's been able to do and move laterally like he has, mm-hmm. Shout out to that. Shout out to him and whatever he's done, because it's very impressive. Villanova, I'm not saying they're like the outright like best. I don't think they're at their best. I think it's going to be time. Like, I think they're going through it. They're figuring out what they're becoming, but they're definitely ahead of schedule. I think they've realized that and they're rolling with that, but we'll see how it goes.
They've had some, they've had some setbacks already. Like,
of course, that's what I mean.
Where you can see some things that are exploitable in the right matchup with teams in this league. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have crazy amount of depth, and then there's only so many dudes on the roster that you trust to be like, all right, it's like one possession game, go seal this deal or go get us back in it. Like, you know what I mean? Where someone's just got to make a play like that. Villanova's like system allows them to pile up wins in bunches. But if you get them into like a little bit of a battle, right? Mm-hmm. Just make it like a mano a mano. I'm gonna make a play and you have to match it. Like, I think that makes them a little bit uncomfortable to some degree. Now they've got some championship pedigree still on that roster, so they do thrive in that a little bit. But that's also how they've gotten beat so far. It's like when it gets down to nitty gritty and it's like the game's not over and there's 5 minutes left. Like, UCLA was able to make plays. Purdue was able to make plays. Like, teams are, there's teams in this conference that have experienced dudes, tough-minded dudes who are skilled that are going to be able to make plays, and they'll lose some games. They're not going to go 20-0. They're not.
I agree. Yeah, and I think that's the original point. But the other thing I will say, the last thing I'll say about Villanova is sometimes with Villanova, especially because at Creighton, we like to play fast. Mm. Sometimes when you play to that level that Villanova likes to play, because they like to play slower than Creighton offense, right? Obviously.
Very deliberate system.
Sometimes when you play to that level, if it's even if it's not your forte, like Creighton, it freaks them out, and they don't know really how to deal with it. So I even have
talking about the opponents, right?
Yeah. So oftentimes I'm like, the way they get people at Villanova is because they're like, we're gonna run our style and you're gonna run yours. And sometimes it's like, because we in my time we've had different approaches, and sometimes like when you play to their style, so to speak, they're beatable. They're a very, you can exploit them to a certain degree.
Well, let me just I know what you're trying to say here. Let me just like, who are the two teams that have historically in this conference, as it realigned, given Villanova the most trouble? It's Butler and Creighton, right?
Yeah.
So what do Butler and Creighton hang their hat on, regardless of style? Is discipline. And why does Villanova win all these titles? Is because they're the most disciplined team in the country. So if you can match their discipline, it doesn't matter the stylistic clash. Because all you have to do is out-discipline them, and you can. It's
the discipline.
It's why they kick Xavier's ass every year. Because Xavier is like the most undisciplined, just freak athlete team every year, right? Absolutely. But when Villanova and them match up, it's like, oh, Xavier's got dudes. Yeah, but Villanova's discipline. So discipline always trumps dudes, in my opinion. And that's why Villanova runs around the gym.
But I think, and I'm glad you brought this up, because think about why we were, in my time, the wins we had over them, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it was the year that we were their last loss till they won that national championship. You know why we beat them that night in overtime? That evening in overtime?
Yeah, you didn't turn the ball over. You executed.
We matched that discipline that you're speaking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yep. Like it's matching that discipline.
You were down 8 with 4 minutes to go. You don't come back when that game unless you're disciplined.
It's matching that discipline. It's a very fair point. So yeah, no, I'm glad. It's just, I think the league, it sparks a lot through all teams. Like a lot of teams affect each other indirectly in that way, where it's like, that's how iron sharpens iron. That's why the Big East is what it is.
For sure. Let's do our surprises, both in good ways and bad ways. Like, which one do you want to start with, bad or good? What should we start with?
Let's go bad first. Let's just hit the bad.
I'll give you mine first, and then we'll do. Then you can give me yours. My surprise team in a bad way, and maybe they shouldn't be a surprise in a bad way because they were bad last year too. So might be like me outthinking myself in the preseason and then just like coming to the realization that I should have done that. But my surprise in a bad way is Butler. Like, and I know they were bad last year, but they also like had so many injuries and COVID pauses, and they still beat Nova and Creighton. You know what I mean? So I felt like, all right, they've got a good mix of like young, talented scorers that are, you know, kind of going to mesh with this veteran group that's been there and done it at different places, and then also at Butler. So like, and then there's also an element of fairness to that point too. This year is like they haven't been healthy either. Like, you know, Miles State still isn't back. Bo Hodges, I don't think has played at all. You know, Aaron Thompson had a 3-game suspension. You know, it's kind of like they haven't been all hands on deck yet either. So maybe it's not time to come to some kind of conclusion on who Butler is yet. But I just think I've watched them a handful of times right now, and it's not pretty. It doesn't look like it's in sync. They don't look like they like each other. They don't look like they're on the same page. It doesn't look like, to me, that's a team that's going to be like, oh, yeah, that one's going to be dangerous in February and March, and they're going to be a tough out in the tourney. I think I was just way wrong on them, and they're my surprise. Like, even when they play scrubs, like, they don't do what they should do to them. You know what I mean? Like, they had Michigan State at home, and Michigan State isn't even, like, all that great this year yet. Like, they're beatable. And Michigan State went in and dog walked them in Hinkle. And I'm just like, dude, I think I missed it. I missed the mark on Butler. They're my surprise in a bad way.
Yeah, that was definitely a game in which they looked like a mid-major. I don't even think Butler's mid-major, so I don't even want to cast them to that level.
Past that,
I don't even want to cast them to that level.
I mean, I'm
not trying to, because I know how Butler is when they're clicking, right?
Yeah.
For Butler, I don't know what the turnover. I think, like what you were saying, I think that you lean a little heavy on that turnover of what they could be this year because of what they were last year.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's the reality now. I just don't think.
Like maybe they were bad last year just because they're bad, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they were bad last year because that's just kind of what. And I'm not trying to be a hater here, but like maybe that's just because what Butler's becoming. That's maybe I don't see that. What I will say, and I'm not trying to be a hater here, is like the chemistry to a very good Butler team, and I've seen very good Butler team. That chemistry is not there. Mm-hmm. It's not the same as it once was with a Keelan Martin and a Kamar Baldwin. Like it's not in a Sean McDermott. Like it's not that same chemistry even like with this team. And I'm not saying they don't have talent, but it is surprising.
I mean, Aaron Thompson getting suspended for 3 games should have been my sign. Yeah, because I thought he was going to be like one of the best leaders in the league. And
he's a very, very good player. Like he's top tier defender. Like we know that. But he got suspended for 3 games for a violation of team rules, and I'm like, you're like your most experienced senior leader shouldn't be getting. That's my point. What can we now come to from that team chemistry? What is that team chemistry?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like now I'm questionable about it. Like just from watching it, we hear he's suspended for the 3 games. We don't really know why. Like, so it's like that's what they are. And then like similarly, I think like surprisingly, I think expectations for the Big East this year, because it's been the conference it is. I'm also, to the same token, like where you're at with Butler, I'm at the same point with St. John's, right? Because
are they your surprise in a bad way?
Absolutely. Because wasn't St. John's supposed to take a leap this year? Wasn't St. John's supposed to like?
Yeah, I think they were predicted to be the top 5 like preseason,
yeah,
and then
right.
Champagne and Posh came back, and there were some expectations.
And those two, and that's the thing. Those two specifically, like I think in watching, because I watched the whole game, Kansas St. John's, and Posh Alexander, like he's a great like athlete in point guard to an extent, but I think like they're limited. They're very, very limited. With him and Champagne, like they can't have off nights, and that's either of them, and that's a very bad recipe for a team that's supposed to take the leap that they're supposed to take.
Champagne had a really, really good game in Bloomington, and they still lost, right?
Very, very, very solid, very solid.
Yeah,
I can't tell you this. I don't know the stats specifically.
I think he had like 36 or something.
But yeah. But he's been solid, and he's looked like because we spoke about this before. Like he's the way that he's built. He's probably one of the best like draft picks out of the Big East, right? But it's tough to be for. I think the two of them, him and Posh Alexander. It's tough to be on a team where 2 guys have to be on every night for you guys to be that team that everybody thinks you are, Yeah. Like it's not like they don't
last year they were a 2-man team and they fell short. So if you're gonna take the leap, you gotta add to it. Yeah.
You gotta add to it. And I've seen I'm not being wrong. I'm not going to even be.
Well, they've already blown their.
I'm not even
already
real
blown their quality win chances.
Yeah, there's nobody else on that team that gives me confidence that they will be better than what they currently are now.
And let me see their schedule too, because that thing is like toilet paper soft, and I think they've already lost both of their quality.
That's my point. Their quality.
Kansas and St. John's were their only opportunities.
The Kansas win. I was like. I was rooting for them. I was their biggest fan because I was like, this is the one. Yeah. And what I saw that game was like what I'm saying now is like, if those 2 dudes aren't putting up 30, I don't think this team has a chance against really good teams. I don't.
Yeah, they have Fordham, Monmouth, Colgate, and Pitt.
Yeah.
Before conference play. And they've only their wins are Mississippi Valley State, St. Peter's, Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Francis, Brooklyn, and NJIT in overtime, and they lost to Indiana and then Kansas. So they're not there. There's no quality wins left in the non-con. So all their NCAA tournament work has to be done in Big East play, basically.
Which is a tough place to be.
Yeah, you got to have some. Yeah, exactly.
That's a very tough place to be.
If you haven't beaten anybody of substance, and then you're going to try to start fresh, clean slate in the Big East, And when do they play? So we got to talk about UConn a little bit, but they get UConn at a favorable window, but then they're what they're going to go into February. Look at this stretch. I
gotta get to this UConn Creighton game, man.
They're gonna play at Creighton on January 19th. Then they get Seton Hall in the Garden. Then they're at Nova, home against Providence. Then they go to Hinkle and play they'll battle out for the worst team in the or biggest. And then they got Villanova, UConn, and then at Xavier again. So there's a stretch there where we might know who they are before Valentine's Day.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly.
We'll know if they're gonna make the tourney by Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll explain it to us.
Yeah,
they'll definitely explain it.
They'll explain it to us. That's how you put it. Yeah.
They'll explain it. That's they'll explain it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do our surprises in a good way. You can go first this time. Who you got? Who's your pick for surprise team in the Big East in a good way?
I guess in a good way, man. I gotta go with Marquette. Marquette, surprisingly,
on the shot, like Shaka wagon. Yeah.
I'm on the Shaka train, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My only thing with that team is consistency. I'm not convinced they can keep this up in Big East play. I think they have had a lot of success early on. I think their schedule. I shouldn't say that. I was about to say I think their schedule has been favorable. I don't think it has. I think they've played some teams that have really tested them. I was going to say they've played a
really tough schedule for sure.
Yeah, I think they've definitely played some teams that have tested them in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, as much as they have impressed me, I'm not confident they can sustain it. I'm curious to see. And especially with Shaka being a first-year Big East head coach,
mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see how he's going to fare in actual Big East play.
Yeah.
Because I know Marquette is I'm not saying it's easy place to come to win, but I know on the road teams have had success there. So I'm intrigued to see how they will do. But they have impressed me thus far. And I guess my take is their consistency to see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, it's definitely so far, if you look at it, like one of the better defensive teams Marquette's had in a long time.
They're scrappy. They're so scrappy.
So if you're trying to build an identity, that's a good place to start. Yeah. Speaking of your St. John's Red Storm, they're up by 3 over Fordham with like 9 minutes left in the first half. So they're still holding on. They're still holding on tight to your analysis here. It's pretty good. It's aging well so far. But yeah, like I don't know. I think you're making some solid points about Marquette. It's hard to argue that they aren't a surprise or in a good way, I guess, because like they've already won a game they shouldn't have. Like that nobody thought they were going to.
You talking about the Illinois game?
The Illinois game. Yeah. So like, they're off to a fairly decent start. They got worked a little bit by Wisconsin and St. Bonaventure, but I don't think anybody kind of expected them to. Like, if you were to say how's Marquette going to do in those 3 games, I don't think you would have expected. I think if you would have said 1 and 2, you'd be like, oh man, that's interesting. Which one are they going to get?
Agreed.
But 0 and 3 was for sure in play, and then. I think they have UCLA coming up pretty soon too. When do they play UCLA? Let me see. So
do they actually? Oh, I'm not aware of this. When is this? UCLA Marquette?
UCLA December 11th at the
at home. Sign me up.
See, that's gonna be interesting, right? They get UCLA at Pfizer. Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, Marquette will tell us exactly who they are. Marquette will. From this point on, Marquette will tell us exactly who they are. I am confident in that.
They're going to go. There's going to be here. This is their upcoming stretch, by the way. They just got worked by Wisconsin in Madison. So after finals, they're going to play.
Oh yeah, I saw.
They're going to play at K-State.
Hey man. I gotta interrupt you. Oh, shout out my man. Chucky Hepburn.
Oh yeah, man. Chuck.
What do you have? What was it, 16 or 15?
I think it was 16, 5, and 3, right?
Shout out Chucky.
Is that what he did?
Shout out Omaha. We have to make that announcement. But
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah, Chucky's doing his thing. That's
doing his thing, man.
Wisconsin hasn't lost when they got Jonathan Davis in the lineup yet. So
they look good. They look good.
Chucky's gonna have some fun up there. So yeah, but Marquette's got K-State on December 8th. Then they got UCLA at home. Then they're at Xavier, home against UConn, at St. John's, versus Creighton, and then versus Providence. So, like, by the time they get to like January, first week of January, we're gonna know quite a bit about them. Like they might everything on their schedule right there could be an L. So whatever they win in that bunch, if there's like 2 or 3 wins in there, we're gonna feel like, oh, Marquette's.
We're gonna know.
Marquette's doing some stuff. Yeah,
we're gonna know.
They're tough out.
Yeah. So
That's a good call. My surprise in a good way is Providence.
yeah, I was about to ask because I'm out here.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
out
you
here.
are.
I hear all the Providence hype every day, all day long. I got all my middle school basketball coaches and everything who love Providence basketball. So please tell me about Providence basketball.
Maybe I shouldn't then. I don't know if I'm gonna like, hey man, I heard your boy the other night. I don't know. Like it's just because I think like, well, first of all, the year before the pandemic hit, or I guess the year it hit, but they were really disappointing to me in the non-con. Like they got up to they had put together a couple of years where they got off to really slow starts and they kind of wrecked their resume to hell and back basically, and then they had to make it all up by basically being damn near perfect in Big East play, right? Like they couldn't lose to any crappy teams and they had to beat some really good teams in order to like impress people. So, and then going into last year, like I think people thought they were going to be, like a top 40 team, right? I mean, I think like if you look at like Andy Katz and people like that, they thought Providence was where were they? They were like the third best team in the Big East in the preseason, weren't they? Weren't they ahead of UConn?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were picked ahead of UConn, right? So like, yeah, I mean, when you factor in, when you look at it like that, they looked a mess. And then they cap it off by going to the Big East tournament and losing to DePaul in the first round. Not even like in a where they played well and DePaul played well. It was like that was a game where I didn't ever want to see that again. You know what I mean? So I come into this thinking like, what's Ed Cooley gonna do in terms of just shaking things up? Is he gonna try to play a more modern free-flowing style, or is he just going to stick to his guns and try to make the flex work for him with different guys? You know what I mean? So like, David Duke left and Nate Watson came back, so there was a little bit, they lost a little bit, but they also got their stud back and their big man, so there was something there, and you're kind of curious how they're going to start the year. And I think they've started off pretty well. Like the win over Wisconsin it's going to age really well, but there's going to be the caveat that Jonathan Davis didn't play in that game and he's a walking bucket. So I don't know if Providence walks into Madison and beats Wisconsin if they're healthy, but they got to win over Wisconsin and Madison. That's going to count for something. And then they beat Texas Tech, who, is having a good year so far in a new coaching staff. They haven't beaten anybody of substance yet, but so far their only L is Providence. So, and they just handed it. They just pounded Rhode Island the other day. I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So, they're doing their thing so far. And normally I'm giving them credit for that because normally they've got these same opportunities in front of them. They just piss them down their leg. And then they come into January, like acting like big dogs. And it's like, you guys didn't do anything over Thanksgiving. Like you got this garbage resume and everybody's supposed to get up for you. It's not happening. So I don't know. I guess I'm giving them credit for not pissing the season away at this point yet.
Okay, what I will say is about Providence now is what's impressive is they've figured out a way to win games when Nate Watson is not good.
Good quality, right? Yeah.
That's scary.
That's pretty good.
When Providence wins games and Nate Watson is bad, ooh, watch out. But my concern is, again, similar to a Marquette, is that sustainable?
Yeah.
Can you replicate that? Like
they still don't score enough consistently. It's like they still have the same Providence-y issues that they usually always have, but
because you're running the flex, so like it's not like you're getting these crazy transition opportunities and like really creating scoring opportunities that wouldn't have been there without. But
without the transition, like you're saying, they don't get any easy offense.
Exactly.
Everything is hard. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if your biggest, strongest guy in your slow, strong, little tough offense isn't getting buckets, it worked for a game. Hey, is that gonna work for a season though?
Yeah, we'll see.
I guess.
Let's see how their
see.
schedule looks coming up because they're 8-1 right now. So I mean, you can't argue with.
Yeah, no, they're doing their thing. They're doing their thing, and everybody out here seems to love it.
I mean, right now the only loss they got worked by Virginia in a Virginia-esque manner. So, and Virginia's not like great this year either. So like that was like they're lucky they played Wisconsin without Jonathan Davis because at least they were able to get a quality win on the slate. Because I'm not sure how the rest of it's going to age, but so they got Vermont and Central Connecticut State, and then they open Big East play at UConn. Like, they also have Georgetown, DePaul, Marquette, and then St. John's in that first like 6 games. So they got a chance to kind of get off to a good start there. But let's talk about UConn though, because getting UConn early, they get UConn on December 18th and January 15th. And you know why that's pretty good for Providence? Because UConn might not have Tyrese Martin or Adamo Sanogo for either of those games. So that's that's big, right? Because Adamo Sanogo has an abdominal injury and he's out. I think the minimum timetable sounds like 3 weeks and it possibly longer. It sounds like it's a pretty significant injury and that he could miss serious time, maybe even like the first month of Big East play, month and change. And then, Tyrese Martin, I think, has a wrist injury, and I think his timetable is 2 to 4 weeks. So if you just map that out a little bit and try to project like best case scenario, even, I think that works out pretty well for Providence when you're like, when do we get UConn? Like they might get them at the right time. So
I think it's going to make for a really good game. I think it will make for, especially, and I know it's looking a little bit ahead, but I think it's going to make for a really good matchup to determine, because what's the second date? What's the second? So it's the first matchup, December
18th, and then 18th. The rematch is January 15th.
Yeah. See, I think that's a good back, like,
and the rematch is at home.
I think
even if Sanogo and Martin are back, it's still a home game for Providence.
I don't want to like overreact, but I do think that that's going to be a very good indicator of this league. Would you agree? Because I think like at that point, regardless of injury, I think that game will definitely tell us a lot about each team defensively and each team's resiliency, like, and willing to fight.
Yeah. So, I guess I don't know how to feel about UConn without those two dudes because I haven't seen them do it yet. But so here's the thing about UConn is like before they start Big East play, before they get Providence, their next 2 games are at West Virginia and then at home against St. Bonaventure. Oh wait, no, it's at the Prudential Center in Jersey. Sorry. So those are 2 pretty tough, tests before Big East play to find out how you're going to manage being without 2 of your top 4 players. Where would you rank Martin on that team? Top 4?
4, yeah. 4.
Yeah, Isaiah Whaley, RJ Cole, Adamo Sanogo, Tyrese Martin.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, like I'd have him over Pauly, right? Tyler Pauly. Would you have Tyrese Martin over Tyler Pauly? I think I would.
Yeah, I would.
So yeah, UConn's got 2 of their top 4 players and arguably their best player in Sanogo. So
yeah,
they're going to play West Virginia on the road, then they're going to play St. Bonaventure on a neutral site, and then they're going to get Providence at home to start Big East play. Like, it's going to be tough. It's tough for us to evaluate UConn right now without those guys because we don't know what that looks like yet. But we'll find out what they're capable of because the schedule is not going to be kind to them while those dudes are out. So
I'm interested to see how Cole will fare without that.
Yeah, because remember he stepped up without Booknight last year.
Yeah.
Like he got going.
Yeah. And even this year, he stepped up in what was maybe it was a couple of games ago, but like he was leading scorer in a game this year where I was like, oh, he really stepped up and he showed me a lot, like from watching him. And I'm interested just to see how he will fare without those 2 because he's never been without the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because Sanogo got hurt last game.
I may be wrong.
But they played Grambling State, so it wasn't like it was a tough game. But
Right.
but Sanogo got hurt.
Were they both out against
no,
Grambling?
Sanogo got hurt against Grambling. He got hurt
in
that game.
So we'll see how they fare. I think RJ Cole, I think he's the real deal. I think he gets it done for them, but I don't know. We'll see. I think it's I hate to keep saying it, but I think a lot of these teams will, from this point, really will tell us who they really are from now until, I guess, Commerce. But
yeah, because no one's really like
UConn's one of those teams.
No one's played a gauntlet yet, right? So yeah, it's like there are some tests up ahead coming up that are gonna be pretty revealing, I think.
Who has the toughest gauntlet? Is it probably?
West Virginia,
I think
St. Bonaventure is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Creighton, BYU.
Yeah, I was about to say Creighton. I think Creighton.
They got BYU on a neutral floor. Oh no, you know what? You know who it is? It's Seton Hall. Seton Hall has Texas on the 9th, Rutgers on the 12th, and then Iona on the 18th.
Ooh, yep.
It's Seton Hall. It's Seton Hall.
It's Seton Hall.
It's definitely Seton Hall. Either Seton Hall or Marquette, one of the two.
But Seton Hall, I will say, Seton Hall is impressed to a certain degree this year. I think they have maybe it's a stretch. I think Seton Hall's had the most continuity from last year of any team in the Big East.
More than Villanova?
I will say yes. I will say yes. I will say yes too.
Yeah.
Also because I did not expect Colin Gillespie to playing to the degree he's at. Colin Gillespie's at I'll say 85% right now, where I expected him to be 55.
Okay, but I think you're onto something with Seton Hall because you look at. Kale played last year. Roden played last year. Obiagu played last year. Bryce Aiken when he was healthy, he got to click with those dudes. Yeah, I'll accept that. I don't argue with that.
I think Roden and I think all of them. I think Seton Hall's offense too, and the way that they play. Not that it's similar to a Creighton speed and pace wise, but I think their structure of how they want to play offensively and what Willard expects out of them defensively is similar to Mac's system. And I think last year, whether it was just because the COVID year or because they had transfers and all that, there was a certain level of because I remember watching Seton Hall last year and being these guys are talented. This is a very talented team. But they didn't put that together. This year, I do feel like they put it together. I feel like watching them and watching their chemistry, the way that I know it sounds super simple and stupid, but watching the way that certain teams and point guards throw lobs to their guys, man, says a lot about chemistry. I know it sounds stupid, but it's true.
You just check out the lob game to figure out how close knit a team is.
I know it sounds dumb, but but people normal people don't understand how hard it is to create a lob opportunity in a game.
Look at Creighton, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Creighton's best teams
and
throw those lobs 6 times a game. How have you seen it this year? Yeah,
right.
So it's not
easy.
And
so I'm watching the Seton Hall offense, and I'm watching Bryce Aiken, man, throw lobs to whether it's Roden or whoever else they got going, right? They have a certain chemistry and a carryover from last year that I don't think people have acknowledged yet this year, and they look good. They do. They look really good. They look very cohesive as an offensive unit.
Yeah,
and I've noticed it, especially just because they've been able, as much as I've been talking about consistency, they've been very consistent in that offensively and defensively. They have an identity.
The thing I'm going to
so that's a good team.
Yeah, the caution that I'm taking with Seton Hall is because, first of all, I've just kind of recalibrated the way I feel about teams based on just some of them have this aura of Big East hype that gets out of control when anything a glimmer of good happens. East Coast people take that and
That's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Like they run to mama with that stuff way too soon. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you get your, it's like you get your quiz back from the teacher and you look at the first side of it and there's no like wrong answers and you run home and then mama turns over.
Like, mom,
yeah.
Look, mom,
and then mom turns over and mom turns over the other side of the quiz and it's like you missed like 8
X.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what the East Coasters do that. Like they're notorious for that. So with Seton Hall, they went to Michigan and won. I thought that was a monster win.
It was,
but Michigan's not that's not aging well. Like, because Michigan went to Arizona and got their butts whipped. Like, they haven't looked like the top 5 perennial or the top 5 team they were supposed to look like so far. So, when you look at the rest of the thing, like they whipped Yale, which wasn't supposed to be a whipping, and it was. But they haven't really beaten. But then they lost to Ohio State at home, which isn't a bad loss, but it's still at home. And then they went to Fort Myers and played a close game against Cal, who I don't think is very good. So, I don't know. This next, like Texas, Rutgers, and Iona, I'm very curious about. Let's just say
that's the goal.
Like I'm not sold on.
All right, I guess we will have to say that now we've come to the conclusion. I guess every Big East team is going to show us who they really are from the point of the end of this podcast to.
I think that take by you was spot on.
I think that's true because we've seen enough to be able to talk about it, right? Like to this degree, like you and I can sit here and give our analysis of these teams, but I think what we're learning now is our sample size isn't big enough yet.
No, they're big enough for us to riff on, but not big enough.
It's big enough for us to have this conversation, but I don't think our sample size is concrete enough or like enough to make a concrete conclusion about these teams yet, right?
Yeah. So we have 3 teams left on the men's side of it. I think 1 good and 2, 1 good, 1 question mark, right? I think that's fair because they've won games, and then 1 ugh. And I'm talking about Xavier, who looks good, right? They beat Ohio State,
right?
Who beat Seton Hall and beat Duke.
Bingo.
Like the Xavier's win over Ohio State is probably the best win in the league right now. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Is he? How do you feel about Auburn? Like UConn, Auburn, that might be the only one that's close, right?
Yeah, no, but I think you're right though that the Ohio State that holds more value right now. At least,
because
at least right now,
at least right now,
right? Yes, exactly. So at least right now, it holds more value.
Yeah, I agree. So Xavier did that, and they did it without Zach Freemantle.
Insane.
They beat Virginia Tech, who's pretty solid. Like that's a solid dub on a neutral floor.
Very solid. I will say.
They lost to Iowa State, but Iowa State's beaten everybody so far too. And when they lost to Iowa State, they didn't have Freemantle or Adam Kunkel, so they weren't at 100%. So maybe you can forgive them that at least, but they have the best win so far, and they just beat Oklahoma State on the road tonight. So I think if there's someone who's like trending toward, let me see what their schedule looks like the rest of the way real quick.
Man, Xavier,
because they're 7-1 right now.
I will say about Xavier too. Xavier is one of the more. When you look at Big East and you want to talk about adjustments throughout a season, I think Xavier's really good at adjusting to the Big East season.
Oh, really? I think they get worse.
Yeah, no. See, I've thought that, but I think this year specifically, like with injuries, how do I put this? I think they come into like every year I've been there. I think they come in and they think they're big bad Xavier and they're gonna do well in the Big East, and they haven't. Like when I was there.
Okay.
However, I'm trying to shift my thinking because I'm trying to specifically think about these teams and how it's been
different coaching staff.
Travis Steele. With Travis Steele, I think the way it's been has been they figured themselves out into the Big East, and then they've gotten it going to a certain degree, and they put their certain things together. And I think this year they're figuring that out to be able to be a team that is able to adjust to win games in the Big East. Just because just because they have that, and I'm basing it heavily off of that Ohio State win. Like when you can figure out a way to win that game, that gives you a ton of confidence to figure out how to win conference.
Oh yeah, that was a real tough game.
I do. Yeah.
No, I think that's what I mean. I'm about ready to go there. I'm about ready to say like, because this was kind of a do or die year for Travis Steele. If you just listen to, other Xavier, people in that media space and what they think about the importance of this season, I think they think this is like an NCAA tournament or bust season for, Steele's program. His
I think
whatever it's going to be for him.
I also think so. Do you?
Yeah. So, because 2 years ago they lost to DePaul in the Big East tournament, and probably there wasn't an NCAA tournament, but they might have wrecked that with that loss. And then last year they didn't make it. So,
I think this is a pretty big year. This Paul Scurry
they've got a win. They've got the win over Ohio State, a neutral win over Virginia Tech, and they just beat Oklahoma State on the road. So to finish out non-con, they've got Ball State. Shout out Jalen Wyndham. Go do your thing.
Shout out Jalen Wyndham.
Ball State. Then they got Cincy, the rivalry game at home, and then they got Morehead State before jumping into conference play. I think if they just finish that out like they're supposed to, I think they're an NCAA tournament team already. Like I think
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm
saying. I agree. I completely agree. I think Xavier.
I mean, they can still screw that up. But I think they'll be in a good spot. I think
they can.
A better spot than they've been in years past.
I agree. I think they are definitely an NCAA tournament team if they can fare that. Like if they can personally, I think for me it's just like if they can still be, I guess, what they've shown thus far, and like the team that won against Ohio State, if they can show me that, if I can feel like they're that team that beat Ohio State in the middle of January in the Big East Conference play, then I am like, that's a tournament team. Regardless, not regardless of record, but as long as their record reflects it.
Yeah. Because that's what I mean. If they just finish out non-con, without any alarming losses, like all I gotta do is just kind of tread water a little bit, beat a team you're not supposed to. Don't lose to anybody that's that's a bottom feeder, and you'll be in the tournament, right? Because once you
team, that's the Big East. That's
right. That's the Big East way to make the tourney is like just
that's how you do it.
Yeah, just don't have a disaster. Speaking of disasters, DePaul might not be one yet, but they've also played like.
That was the.
Depending on how you feel about Rutgers, like that, I don't know. They just lost to Loyola at home yesterday, and Loyola is pretty good. I think they're pretty good. I don't know if they're great, but they're pretty good.
It's a really good AAU team.
I don't know if it's a loss you want to take at home if you think you're going to be good. So I'm kind of worried a little bit about Providence or not Providence, DePaul. But they look good for the new coaching staff and everything. I think this is a fine start for them to be on. Like they haven't looked DePaul like yet.
You're so sweet.
They're only.
You're so sweet.
A 4-point loss to Loyola.
It's a fine start.
It's a fine start. They haven't had their doors blown off yet.
They haven't.
And that's usually like the hallmark of every DePaul team is they're going to get their doors blown off like 5 or 6 times a year. And they're going to lose a game where you're like, ooh, gross. What was that?
Do you want to throw over under on that? Because I still think they will 5 or 6 times going forward. I'm pleasantly surprised.
I'll take the under. I'll take the under on 5 or 6 whoopings. What's your margin of whooping? What are we defining whooping as?
I'd put 5 games at least in the Big East.
Yeah, but what's your margin of victory for a whooping? 20 points?
20 piece.
Okay, so are they going to lose 5 or 6 Big East games by 20 or more? I'll take the under. I'll believe.
Oh, I'd put this bet right now. I definitely can sit here and tell you Creighton, Providence, Marquette at home.
Marquette.
That's a thing.
Marquette's
Marquette
gonna 20-piece DePaul
at home. And on a snowy night, if that's
the Shakas are gonna like create 30
definitely, obviously Nova. Who else? Wait, how many is that? 3?
No, I think you're at 4.
Marquette,
you said Marquette,
Creighton, Nova. Yeah, give me.
We just said good things about Xavier, so is Xavier one of them at Cintas then maybe?
Yeah, we'll get at Cintas. But give me Xavier, please, and then honestly, Seton Hall probably.
Seton Hall, so, you haven't even said UConn yet. You think UConn beat the dog crap out of them last year? Like
that's 6. That's 6. I just
UConn dog walked the ball every time they faced them. That was ugly.
So, honestly, that's UConn. UConn 5 by 5. That's 6. Yeah. So that's 6, and I was only saying 5.
Yeah, you might be right. I might have messed that up. But hey, the cat's out of the bag. I already said it. So yeah. I'm worried about UConn now because UConn loves to beat the crap out of. UConn loves to beat the crap out of like bad teams. So
I came to this podcast. This is what happens. This is what you do to me. I came on this podcast so hype about the Big East and how I'm like, yo, the Big East is sick this year.
And you just know where we're at.
You know where we're at. You know where we're at. Huh. We're at the bottom, and we're talking about how I'm thinking DePaul is about to get blown out by 26 times this year.
Yep.
And we haven't even talked about the catastrophe that is Georgetown.
See,
I'm to the listener, Georgetown was my dream school. I need people to know this. I need this to be set on record.
Oh.
Georgetown I grew up in suburbia Massachusetts. And in suburbia Massachusetts, they tell you, you go to a good athletic and academic school, and Georgetown was one of those schools. And I always thought, Georgetown, great school. And then I played Georgetown for 4 years at Creighton University.
Yeah.
And now I can critically talk to people about what basketball is at Georgetown. And I am thoroughly disappointed.
Did you apply to Georgetown ever in your life?
No.
Oh, okay.
I should have. I actually didn't think I was smart enough to even ever get in.
You didn't think you were smart enough to get into Georgetown? Why?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
What's so special about Georgetown?
My mom lost
Georgetown.
My mom
wouldn't have Scurry in the scrub without Jordan.
My mom tries to pretend like Georgetown is like the Ivy League school I would never get into. And so I think that's what it was.
Oh, she put it on a pedestal for you. So
she put it on a pedestal. And I was like,
that's a mistake.
I want to go to Creighton. So I don't care about your Georgetown.
Hey, I'm glad you chose what you chose because it put
me too.
So Georgetown looks like bad.
Yeah.
I was gonna like be really drive that one home, but it's just bad.
I don't have it.
It's bad, and I feel bad because I don't want.
I do too, and I don't even want to come on here and like say bad things about them because I feel so bad.
Why are they still bad? Why? Like that?
I don't know.
They shouldn't be still bad, right?
Did you? This is an honest question. Did you think they would get better with the hiring of Patrick Ewing? Because I did.
100%.
And last year building off the
he wasn't some
the
Big East.
I didn't think that either. I completely agree. And being a guy from Boston, like Patrick Ewing, his name has stupid amount of buzz out here still. Cambridge Richland Latin High School, right here. Recruits, AAU kids, guys I know from here, are like, yo, Patrick Ewing, love to play for him. Like, that's the thing. But they didn't build, man. They didn't build. And I don't mean to shift this to make it a me thing, but what I appreciate and I love about Creighton, right, is every year I was there, we built
off the year before
when we went to the Big East championship game and played against Nova. I know we didn't win. I know we didn't. That's whatever. But it's like you saw within the university, you saw within the school, you saw improvements within our facilities, locker rooms, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you saw a build. And where I'm frustrated with Georgetown is it's like, you guys want to be Big East tournament championship last year. Like you did. And I know it's against my squad. So like you did. What did you do to build on that? And I'm not trying to say like it should be the easiest thing in the world to do that. I'm just saying it's very interesting to see.
But they brought back, Dante Harris was the Big East tournament MOP. They brought him back, point guard, right? They brought in a good recruiting class. They lost Wahab, so you're like, okay, that's tough. But they brought in a good recruiting class, and they brought back the Big East tournament MOP. And Maryland doesn't look great. Like it's not like Wahab turned Maryland into a badass. But
he put up a double. He's putting up.
I understand, but Georgetown could have Georgetown still could have built off that. You know what I mean? It still could have happened. Creighton lost.
That's what I'm saying. But that's why
Creighton lost Tyshawn last year. They didn't go in the tubes. Me. Yeah,
exactly.
Sorry, yeah, they lost Jordan Scurry, and then they lost to a lesser degree Tyshawn Alexander.
And still won most games in tournament history, right?
Went to a Sweet 16 and stuff. Yeah, they should have built off that. They had enough. Guys back.
That is. No, for real. But that is what I am saying about on a real note. Like with Georgetown, I think it was just really disappointing to me because they had a lot to build on. And going through that Big East circuit for 4 years, I know what it's like to build, and they didn't do it.
They just got whipped today by a bad South Carolina team too, so it doesn't look like it's coming together.
Ain't that some shit?
What's their schedule? Let's see what their schedule is like. They're 3-4 right now. They're the only sub 500 team in the Big East. So that goes to your why you're hyped about the Big East.
Who is Georgetown's last pro?
Well, Pickett, right?
Pickett?
Yeah, he's there now. Pickett. He was there last year. So Georgetown's got UMBC, Syracuse, Howard, and then TCU before Big East play. Honestly, if you told me they're only going to win one of those games, I wouldn't be that surprised.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, so all of them are at home though, so maybe they go on a run. But Georgetown's home.
What is Georgetown? Yeah, well, I was about to say that. The Georgetown students, unfortunately, I can tell you, I have friends from high school who go to Georgetown. Yeah, and I can't, and I only say it's unfortunate because they don't go to basketball games.
Oh no. It's kind of like how it is.
They went to my high school.
Capital One Arena from.
They went to my high school basketball games, man, but they don't go to Georgetown basketball games.
Let's see how. I've never even looked this up.
No, it's pretty close, man.
Is it?
You just walk.
It's walking distance.
No, I wouldn't say that. Bus distance. You can get there via transit. Yeah, but no, what?
Oh yeah, it's 4 miles away.
Yeah, bus.
Okay.
But that's why I've never seen it. I mean, and I have. It's just so sorry for Georgetown. Let me stop.
No, it's sorry. It's sorry. You're right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I don't know. All right, let's do the women's side now. How much? Let's be honest. How much women's basketball have you watched? Because I might have to do the heavy lifting here. How much Big East women's hoops have you watched? Creighton and the right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I was just about to say. I was about to be
gonna lock in on that.
The only girls basketball team I care about, and none others. Sorry.
Gotcha. So big news today in the Big East was that Paige Beckers hurt her left knee. It looks like not left knee, right knee.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of UConn's they were up 18 when she did it with less than a minute to go. God damn it, Gino, why is that girl in the game? What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But his reasoning was he doesn't like what his team looks like when she's off the floor. And my response, I wasn't there. My response to that is like, well, now you're about to find out what they look like without her on the floor because it looks like a pretty serious injury. But like honestly, like she was averaging 36 minutes a game, and she had off-season ankle surgery on that same side, that right leg or whatever. So what do you know, Jordan, about injuries and like strength and conditioning and what happens to your body when you're overcompensating? You're something else, right? On that side. Yeah.
All I know is about overcompensation. And I think from personal experience, I will say, I had knee issues in college, like slight. I'm not saying they're the most, but from overcompensation, they affected my lower back. Yeah. And so, like, I guess my point to this whole thing is that these things are reactional. And like these things are,
it's not a coincidence.
They have carryover. It's just no coincidence. There's no coincidence.
She had off-season ankle surgery on her right ankle, and the first 6 games of the season, including today, she's averaging 36 minutes a game. So that's why her knee hyperextended. They're hoping it's a hyperextension. The thing flat out gave out. All she was doing, she was dribbling off the floor against no pressure. She took a step, and her knee gave out. Like, you know what I mean? That's wear and tear from overcompensation on a leg that had already been compromised that offseason. So
absolutely,
UConn should have played the long game with her and slowly brought her back instead of running her into the ground the first 6 games of the year, because that's why that injury happened. Point blank, period. Absolutely. Science tells us this. We know absolutely. This. Every strength and conditioning coach in the country we can put on the show right now and they'll tell us that knee injury is because of overcompensation from the ankle, period.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, UConn's got to deal with that now. Like they already got whipped by South Carolina. So South Carolina is going to be the number 1 team in the country until someone beats them. And UConn looks pretty good, but UConn looks pretty good when Paige is on the floor. So now UConn's going to have to figure out, how long she's out. And if it is as bad as it looked, they're not going to have her the rest of the season. So they got to figure out what their identity is without one of the best young playmakers the college game has ever seen, period.
Right.
It makes things a little interesting in the Big East. I don't know. I'm not going to say UConn's like going to lose 4 or 5 games like I would predict for Villanova on the men's side, but they're more beatable without Paige. There's no question about it. Like they can't score at the same level. They can't make plays at the same level because she's gotten better defensively. And then she also is like their primary offensive facilitator and probably their best shooter. So they have some questions to answer now without her. And it might make the Big East a little bit more interesting in that regard. So that's the UConn news for today. That happened this afternoon. And so, yeah, Creighton is off to a 2-0 start in Big East play, though. They beat Georgetown pretty handily at the CHI, at your arena, Jay.
I know. I saw they played there.
Hosting, so, yeah.
I was just about to ask, do you know if it's they're going to play there more this year, or is that that one time thing?
Volleyball was hosting the regional, so the arena wasn't available. So yeah, they whipped Georgetown at CHI.
I'm like, why not let them play there? They're kind of killing there now. Right?
Well, they played well there, but the crowd is like, it's not the same. It's too spread out. Like
you like it better.
Well, I mean, DJ Sokol Arena, the energy is like,
it's more. Yeah, no, I mean, you're the more you're more veteran with going to the women's game. So like,
DJ's a rocking environment. Yeah.
All right, bet.
Yeah. So yeah, then they played Villanova the day at DJ Sokol Arena. Villanova didn't have Maddie Segrist, so there's a little bit of a asterisk on it, I guess. We don't know how long she's out. She's their stud.
Trying to talk asterisk to a Patriots fan right now. Turn that off.
Oh, sorry. But I mean, Villanova turned it over like 10 times in the third quarter. Creighton had 9 steals. They blew them out. Peyton Brodsky, your girl, had a really good day.
Homie, shout out P. Brot.
Yeah, we got to have her on the podcast. She can get you on.
We gotta get her on. We gotta get her on soon.
She'll get you locked in on the women's game.
I need it.
She had 5 points, like 7 boards, 4 steals, like doing all the dirty work.
That's what I'm saying, B. Yeah. That's what I've been, and I kind of try to hint on that a little bit. Like when we got to talk to Flan, like I feel like the thing is for that team, for their team specifically, is it's who's gonna like that dirty work for them. Yeah. Who's gonna like really step in because
they can score, right? So
they can score. Yeah. They can score. It's the little things. Who's gonna dive on the floor? Who's gonna like really like make those hustle plays for them? Mm-hmm. And so the homie, Peyton, I think she really has an opportunity here for her. I guess super senior year. Isn't that what they're calling it now, or is it senior?
I think she's in her regular.
I'm confused. Is it? It's her 4th regular? I think
it's her regular senior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, yeah. I'm just old, so I don't know.
No, she's been around for a minute though. You're good. No, you're good. I had to think about it too. But yeah, you're right though. Like because they got when you think about, they've got some offensive pop with Emma Ronsick, Morgan Malley, Carly Batchelor.
Emma's a bucket, man.
Tatum, we got T2. Lauren Jensen had a career high. T2 is a bucket.
Lauren was a bucket, and shout out Emma. That Emma, what was her high? She had 29. She
had 25 against SDSU. 25. So yeah, that's right.
SDSU. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, man.
And then so you're right. Like they got to figure out like how do they make some gritty plays? Who's going to make the difference for them defensively? So far it's like Rachel Saunders, Molly Mogensen, Mallory Brake, Jamie Horan, Peyton Brodsky. Like they've got a pretty good mix of like a group of players that are going to make the gritty, tough, hard nosed plays, and then like
for sure,
and then the group of players who are going to like get the buckets. You know what I mean? So I think they're all kind of like settling in, like kind of finding their flow, finding their roles, and like they've won 4 games in a row here, and I think they feel pretty good about themselves right now. So their schedule coming up is, this one gets kind of tough too. Yeah, they got Arizona. They got the next 2 at home. Arizona State on the 12th, South Dakota on the 16th. And then they're going to go to Providence on the 19th, and then end non-conference play at Arkansas, a real tough game before Christmas. And then it'll be Big East play after that. So there's an opportunity here for Creighton to build that resume up. Like if they, Arizona State, South Dakota, and Arkansas are all going to be really tough. And then Providence whipped on Villanova yesterday. And I don't know what they did. Looks like they lost today to, who would they play? Georgetown. Yikes. Jesus, Providence. It's not a good L at all.
No.
Yeah, so Georgetown beat Providence on the road today. Yikes. But yeah, like that's a tough slate for the Jays though, because they'll they'll have a Big East game on the road, and then Arizona State, South Dakota, and Arkansas are all going to be tough non-con games. But if they get 2 of those non-con games, 2 of those last 3, I think you can throw like the Creighton women into that category with the Xavier men, where I'll feel like going into like the heart of like where Big East play is all that's left. I'll feel like
I like that.
I feel like they already have an NCAA tournament resume built up.
I like that. I like that a lot. I agree.
Yeah. So that's how I feel. That's my thoughts on things. How are you got any thoughts left?
No, man. I mean, I back those thoughts. I think you have a lot of good thoughts. I think we've thrown a lot of good thoughts out here tonight.
I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do for the women's side of things. I'm just gonna give you like a game to watch a week. That way, like, we'll slowly build you up.
Get me into it. I'm sorry.
Like, give you a weekly assignment of Big East.
I'm sorry. I really only to the listeners, so we can just be we're honest with the audience, right? Like, to be honest, I really watch strictly Creighton women's highlights. Like that's my forte.
Well, there's a lot of highlights right now, but
I know.
We'll get you caught up.
We'll definitely
we're a balanced podcast on Scurry and the Scrub here, so we're gonna bring balance to the force is what we do. That's what we're doing.
Of course, that is the vibe. I've definitely I've known I need to tap into more of these games, so we'll get there. But
and I'm gonna hit up Creighton.
Maybe
We're gonna get Peyton on the podcast.
We gotta get T2, we gotta
T2,
get Peyton, we gotta get Emma, we gotta get the whole.
Yeah,
we gotta get them all on. So
we gotta get our guests on.
We gotta get the squad, man.
Jahens has been killing me about making a Scurry in the scrub appearance. We gotta get Jahens on, like,
man. That is definitely A1 guest one.
Yeah,
priority list number one. So
for sure.
We got some good stuff coming. I'm excited for this season. I'm glad we got to get this Big East like recap
kick it off. Yeah,
get it going. So,
all right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning into our Big East weekend review. It's our first one, but it's gonna be we're gonna make this a theme. Schedules.
Excited to kick it off.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our thoughts on the Big East. Hopefully you enjoyed them. And if you disagree, hit us up. Let us know what you think.
Oh, please let me know if you disagree. I want to hear even more if you do disagree.
All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in always. And I appreciate my guy Jordan Scurry. This has been your first edition of the Big East Weekend Review on Scurry and the Scrub. Talk to you all soon.